So I know we don't have everyone back, but I want to be very respectful of time. So I'm going to get started. Hope you all had a good lunch. We're going to move into talking about the stages of change theory. By a show of hands, who's familiar with this health behavior model? Okay, so a few people who aren't. So the reason that we're including a little piece on stages of change is that it's also a really helpful tool when you're working with people coming up with goals, both kind of long-term and specifically the SMART goals. So we're going to just do a little bit of work around stages of change, and then we'll move on. So in your packet, you also have this slide as a handout with some additional information. I'm just going to talk you through the stages of change, and then we'll do a little activity around it. So if you want to get it out, you can. If you don't want to, that's fine too. So there are lots of behavior change theories in social science. This is a very popular one that's used often around adherence and also kind of SMART goals and goal setting. Other ones that are helpful are called, there's the health belief model, there's the theory of reasoned action. I mean, there's a whole list of different ones that are helpful in designing programs and interventions for people. So while this is a cycle and people can start anywhere on it, just for the sake of the discussion and the explanation, I'm going to start with pre-contemplation. So oftentimes, this is really where someone has no intention at all of changing their behavior. They oftentimes don't have a recognition of the problem, or even if there's a recognition of the problem, they're not accepting that they have a problem. And so this is often a time that's pretty hard, actually, to intervene and do much, which I know we're all, at least I'll speak for myself, like generally uncomfortable with. Like I don't like to feel like I can't be helpful. And oftentimes in pre-contemplation, you're not going to be able to be as helpful. Sometimes, right, and then people can move to contemplation, which is that they are aware of a problem and they've come to terms with that maybe there is a problem. Maybe they want to start thinking about doing something about it. Maybe they're overwhelmed, they're not sure what they could do about it, but they're contemplating it, right? It's stirring in their mind and they're thinking about it and acknowledging it. Then people can move to preparation. And this is the stage we all love to, I think, be in with people, is because they're actually aware of a problem. They haven't expressed a commitment to change, to do something, and they're preparing for it. So again, that can look very different depending on what they want to do and what the problem is, but they're preparing. Then oftentimes they move to action. So they're actually doing something, right? Whether it's the SMART goal stuff, whether it's something different, they're actively engaging and doing something. People then move to maintenance or can move to maintenance. And this is really, there's no sort of defined, I don't think there's a defined term like how long do you have to be doing something to be considered in maintenance, but it has to be long enough where it's really becoming a habit or kind of a second nature type of thing, okay? The new behavior really has replaced the old behavior. And then at any point in time, people can relapse, okay? Oftentimes sometimes a relapse can happen for no apparent reason. Oftentimes it may be, there may be a critical event that happens. There's a new, diagnosis. There's a big social issue, right? There's a breakup, there's a baby, there's a death, there's a hospitalization, whatever it is, right? And then from relapse, you can really enter back to any of these at any point. Like you don't have to go from relapse to pre-contemplation. You could go from relapse right to action again. All right, and also this, again, you can skip stages, right? This doesn't work exactly like this. But why would this be helpful? And then we'll do a quick activity.
A different set of tools that you can pull out to move patients or members, clients, humans along the next one.
Right. Absolutely. So again, back to my example of when we go to the doctor, they tell us 3 things. They have sorry, go ahead. Oh, they have no idea about where we are with any of this stuff, and they just tell us to do these 3 things, and it doesn't happen, right? And oftentimes it doesn't happen for many, many reasons, but also because there's no recognition of like, where are we within this? Right, you have to meet the person where they are.
I was talking to one of my people on Monday, and she has been sober for 40 years, but if you ask her, she's still in action.
Yeah.
She's not in maintenance.
So she identifies as action. I wonder why doesn't she identify as maintenance?
Because then she lets her guard
It's too
down and might
comfortable?
slip.
Okay. Yeah, sure. So it's interesting. So you clearly work with this. Or the people you work with, you kind of let them identify where they are on this? Okay. So you can definitely do that. Again, I wouldn't show them this because this is not very plain language or health literate. I've seen that approach. Sometimes mostly I've used it sort of for my own kind of process with someone, but certainly I think that's a great idea. So in your packets, you have a handout that says stages of change activity, and there's 4 scenarios. In each scenario, it asks you to define what stage of change the person is in, what some of the characteristics of people in this stage are, and then like what kind of information or better said, what kind of intervention or what would you be doing with this person? What I want to have you do, there's 4, and I'm just going to have you each work in a small group or pairs, but you're only going to focus on one. So you can work however you want, like in pairs, in groups of 3, by yourself. It's all good to me because our space is limited. But I'm going to have the people on this side and like from maybe you over work on scenario 1. The rest of the people in this middle section, no, that's not going to work. Sorry, let me redo that. The people on this side work on scenario 1. Half of this section work from like, I guess you're right in the middle, but I know I can't split you down the middle. From here this way, you'll work on scenario 2. From here this way until the aisle, scenario 3, and scenario 4 over here. And again, feel free to turn around and work with someone else.
She does want to stop.
She does want to stop drinking, but same paragraph.
Okay.
Same sentence.
Okay, let's come back together. Let's come back together. I hate doing that though. All right, everyone. I know there's good conversation going on. Let's come back together, just so we can keep the day moving along. All right, so I'll read scenario 1, and then I'll just ask for what the people who did scenario 1 came up with. So Gwen is a single mother to 2 small children who has been drinking every day. She does not disclose how much, and smoking a pack of cigarettes each day for the last 15 years. She is also living with her cousin in a small mobile home while she goes to community college at night. She works during the day at a small diner near where she is staying. She has been referred into the care management program by her caseworker at the housing agency. You meet her for the first time at the diner while she is on a break. She says that she does want to stop drinking, but has not begun to start thinking about quitting. She is mostly concerned with feeding her family and getting out of her cousin's home. So what stage of change do you think she's in here? Anybody over here? Okay, so for the alcohol piece, contemplation. Anything else? Any?
Preparation for housing.
Okay. So yeah, so this is actually interesting because this is what happens with most people, right? We don't neatly fit into these boxes. She has many different issues and things going on, and for some things she's really working and ready to tackle, and for other things not. So you can be in multiple stages depending on what topic it is or what issue in your life, which again is, makes things more complicated. So how do you know she's in contemplation?
She said she wants to do something.
Okay.
But she hasn't started thinking about quitting.
Right, but she hasn't really started. Right, she wants to, she acknowledges an issue, but she hasn't really made a plan. And then in terms of housing and her family, you said preparation? Is that what you said? Does everyone agree with that? Okay. You could definitely make the argument that she's in preparation. You could even, I think, make the argument that she's in action. I mean, she's going to school, right? She's got a job, so she's clearly doing something to get out of her cousin's home and put food on the table. So what are some characteristics of people in these stages? Anyone? She's aware, okay, in contemplation, aware of a problem.
They're somewhat functional at that, in doing some of their daily lives and working perhaps, or they have some things that are going on that are going well.
Uh-huh, okay. And what about preparation or action? Let's take preparation.
She has a desire.
She has a desire, she's doing, right? Like I said, she's doing something. So what would you help her with at this point? What would your approach be?
Connect her with the housing and financial resources.
Okay, try to help her with the housing. We just talked about how hard that might be, right? But try our best. What else? Anything else with her?
Would really reinforce the positive steps she's taking
Yeah,
already.
yeah, that's great. Anyone else feel that way? So she said reinforce the good things that she's doing. She's doing a lot already, right? And that's part of our job, is to be like the cheerleader for people who don't often have someone doing that in their life, right?
So if she wants to stop drinking, would you put the idea of what we can do to start working toward that?
Yeah, I mean, of course, we need to know more about her, right, and our relationship, but assuming like she's got things going on, she does want to stop, but she's just not sure how. I think planting seeds at this point is a good strategy. That's great that you want to stop. Here are some ways that people do that, or here's what I can do for you when you're ready, whatever, something like that. Okay, good. Scenario 2. Glenn is a 45-year-old man, sorry for that typo, who is obese, has diabetes, and high blood pressure. He says he knows that he needs to eat better and exercise. He reports that he does take his medications most of the time, but just can't seem to get going with an exercise or diet plan. His daughter is getting married in a year, and he would really like to be able to dance with her and enjoy the day. So what stage of change for the people who did 2? Preparation, yeah. So how do you know he's in preparation? He's planning, right? So he's acknowledged the issue, right? He says he kind of knows what he has to do, right? But again, he might be over.
We actually said he was in contemplation.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because he's aware there's a problem, but he just can't seem to get going.
Uh-huh.
And he doesn't have the commitment.
Okay. What does everyone else think?
But he has a desire.
A goal might push him to preparation? Is that what you're saying? Okay.
I really grasped onto the part that said he would really like to be able to dance.
Uh-huh. Okay.
So that could have been something.
In fact, it takes his medicine.
Yeah. So yeah, I think you can make the argument for either. I thought preparation again, just because he's saying that he wants to do it, and to me, it seems like he's trying. He just needs a little bit of like guidance with that, and that he is taking his medications most of the time, and that's actually pretty good, right? We know for the way people take medication. So, but I don't argue. Like, I think you can make the case the other way as well, and these things are not always. Sometimes you're in between the two. Yeah. Yeah, so exactly. I mean, sometimes definitely you can be in between. Life is messy, right? It's not always clear. So what would you do for this person at this point? Yeah.
I'd kind of like to know from Glenn, what does it mean to him to eat better? What does it look like? What does exercise look like? Because he might have this idea that he can't attain that,
Right.
even though he can, and helping to educate him and plan around that.
Right. He might think the only way is, diving into those hour-long classes like we talked about, right? Well, probably not. Great. Anything else you do for him? Yep.
We talked about getting him set up with a nutritionist to perhaps go over what his daily intake is, do a food journal, figure out little tweaks that he could make that would start adding up to a behavior difference.
Yeah, and that will set him up for success, right? Because those will be small things, right? He could just go see a dietitian, right? That might be that might be a SMART goal.
And
Right.
his medications, I don't know why he doesn't take them all the time, maybe he needs a reminder.
Right, right. Could be a lot going on with the medication, we just don't know. All right, good job. So scenario 3. Lily is a 55-year-old woman who was referred to the care management program by her psychiatrist. She was diagnosed with bipolar disorder when she was in her 20s, but has only started on medication and therapy in the last few years. She was homeless for many years and worked as a sex worker to support herself. During this time, she also became addicted to alcohol and heroin. She has 4 children who do not live with her. She is hoping to get them back soon and has committed to taking her medications, going to NA, she's been sober for 90 days, and building her job skills through job training that she receives through the shelter she's living in. So complicated, Lily's complicated. What stage of change does she seem to be in? Action. How do you know?
She's committed.
Right.
The meds was a little bit, it was hard to determine what she's
Sure.
really taking them, but she is doing her NA and she has been sober.
Yep.
For 90 days.
And she's building job skills, right? So she's doing a lot, right? And so what would you focus on at this point?
And we talked about continuing to build her confidence by using SMART goals that she can achieve to really just help her keep building up until she is able to really get into the state of maintenance.
Yeah. So anything you're worried about with her?
Relapsing.
Yeah, right? So this one, to me, this one screams relapse more than some of the
She's
others.
involved in so many things to get better.
Yeah. So oftentimes, in the counseling and the work you do with the goal setting is planning for relapse before it happens, right? And having people identify, what will make you maybe not use the word relapse. In her case, it kind of works given her situation, but right, what would make you what would have to happen in your life where like this would stop, this good stuff would stop, and how do we prevent it? That kind of thing. Good. All right, I have like 2. Yeah.
It makes me wonder how old could the 4 children be if she's 55? And
Yeah. Well, they could be teenagers, I guess, right?
all 4 of them?
Yeah.
You know what I'm
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I mean, I was thinking like between like 13 and 16 or something like that, 12. Darren has diabetes, HIV, and had a heart attack 6 months ago. Since then, he had been taking diabetes self-management classes and working with his health coach often. He had been eating better, exercising, and reducing his stress. He had lost 15 pounds in the last few months and was feeling strong and proud of himself. However, 3 weeks ago, his mother died suddenly of a stroke. He was very close to his mother and has taken the news hard. He stopped watching what he ate and stopped exercising He says he feels depressed and lonely. He's not sure what to do. So what stage is he in here? Relapse, right. So what will we do here?
Education. Address the loss.
Yep.
Address the fear of it happening to him.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm a little out of my element here with this, so I'm relying on the social workers over here.
I think he needs to forgive himself for the relapse too. And
Sure.
just not beat yourself up about it.
Yeah.
Move forward.
Yeah, I love that, right? It's like normalizing that, like, this is a big thing, this is a horrible thing that happened, and it's very common for people to become depressed or stop doing the things, the healthy things they were doing for themselves, right? Great, okay. So we're moving on. Just want to summarize. These are, I think, all things that we talked about, so I'm not going to read the slide to you. Goals are realistic. Okay, so I think we covered all of this between SMART goals and stages of change. So we're going to move on, and I'm going to hand it over to Ronica for some stuff on motivational interviewing.